Welcome to our weekly Parsha Insights. This is W. Grossman with the Institute of Jewish Chaplaincy, focusing on veterans and their families. This week's Parsha is Parshas Mikeitz, which means in the end. Going back to review a little bit. Yaakov sees in his son Yoseph the compassion and the power and the ambition that his father Yitzchak saw in his brother Esav. But Yitzchak's wife Rivka saw that the power of Torah to guide that ambition and that passion was critically important, and that's why she pushed that the blessings would be given to Yaakov. And in retrospect, Yitzchak agreed, and the blessings were given to Yaakov. Yaakov sees that in Yoseph is all that combined power, not only of Esav with the passion and the engaging in the world, but the guidance of Torah that Yaakov had. So he sees all this in Yoseph, and that's the natural leader for the next generation. And he sees that. There's some other similarities with Yaakov and Yoseph as well in their journey and their path. Yaakov's brother hated him, and Joseph's brothers learned to hate him. Yaakov's brother Esav looked to kill him, and Joseph's brothers sought out to get rid of him as well, to destroy him as well. It seems that in each of their ascent, there's a descent, but it's for the purpose of another ascent. Many of you have heard me talk about the pattern language of the hero's journey, as popularized by Joseph Campbell. The pattern is never more evident than here in the story of Joseph. There will be one challenge after another as the hero learns the ins and the outs of his own strengths and convictions. Every descent is really for the purpose of a much greater ascent. In every situation, it's only when Yosef acknowledges that God's divine providence and God's divine presence is in the depths of despair, that's when the salvation comes. And it comes in the blink of an eye. When Joseph trusts in human support or in his own prowess, the descent begins. When Yosef gets comfortable with himself and starts to preen and feel accomplished, the troubles multiply. Every time that Yosef acknowledges God as the power to interpret dreams, that's in God's hands, immediately his own lot improves. Ultimately, when he has completely surrendered his ego, then he's not only becomes master of his own fate, he becomes in charge of all of Egypt, and he's empowered to save the whole family and the destiny of the entire Jewish people. So let's review. Yosef is living at home and learning with his brothers, and all seems to be well. But when Yosef starts to have his prophetic dreams of his becoming powerful, when he has some level of pride in sharing this with his brothers, they learn to hate him. Yosef continues to share his prophetic dreams, believing that since it is divine, surely his brothers will come on board with his leadership, and yet he still has some ego. And so the brothers decide it's time to get rid of him. And they sold him off into slavery. This is a deep descent. This is the deepest descent in his life, but one that will be a powerful growing experience and will lead him to a great ascent and prepare him to save the nation in the future. Down in Egypt, Yosef is sold as a slave, but God blesses everything he does. Yosef is promoted again and again until he actually is in charge of Potiphar's entire estate. But pride raises its ugly head again, and he starts to preen himself and feel important. So Potiphar's wife starts after him, and down he goes again. It is only the vision of his father and the ultimate family mission that keeps him on the straight and narrow. Joseph's ego is crushed as he is dashed down again, and this time into prison. And prison is even lower than low. Now, in this lowest state, where his sense of self is totally subdued, Joseph begins to serve the prisoners. And he is blessed with success. And the descent has been the catalyst for the coming ascent. With the death of his ego comes the greatest success. But he still has a setback. Upon interpreting the dreams of the butler and the baker, Yosef requests that the baker, upon returning to the palace, remember me and save me. His ascent is put on hold for 2 years because of these two phrases in which he places his hopes upon a human being. Another hard lesson learned. But finally, Appearing before Pharaoh, Yoseph publicly declares, "It's not from me. Rather, it's upon God to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh and provide an answer that is to Pharaoh's advantage." And just like the name of our Parsha, Mikeitz, at the end, it's only at the end of the journey that we can clearly see that every descent was for the purpose of an ascent. And it's only when we surrender our ego, acknowledging that everything is under God's divine providence, that we can finally maximize our true potential, be the best that we can be, and actually bring salvation and peace to our own little corner of the world. May this week bring you revealed peace and blessings.